At my father's 68th birthday party, he asked me in front of 50 guests, "James, tell me, did that $200,000 I gave you cover your student debt? I've been living in my car for 3 months, parking behind a 24-hour gym so I can shower. I almost didn't go to this party because showing up to family events when you're secretly homeless is humiliating. But it's my dad's 68th birthday, and my mom had been texting me all week saying how hurt he'd be if I didn't come. So I put on my one clean button-down from Goodwill, brushed my teeth with a water bottle, and drove to my aunt's house. The party was packed. At least 50 people, maybe more. My aunts, uncles, neighbors, people from Dad's old accounting firm. There was catered food, a full bar, decorations everywhere. I was just trying to blend in and grab some free lunch without anyone asking about my life. My brother Grant was there with his wife Kelly and their 2 kids. They looked perfect as always. Grant works in finance. They've got this beautiful house in the suburbs with a manicured lawn, new Audi in the driveway. We've never been super close, but we're cordial at family stuff. Everything was normal for about 2 hours. I talked to cousins, avoided questions about my job situation, even managed to sneak some sandwiches into my jacket pockets for later. Then my dad stood up to give a speech. He thanked everyone for coming, made some jokes, told stories about getting older, standard birthday stuff. Then he looked directly at me and said, "James, since you're here, tell everyone, did that $200,000 I gave you a few years ago cover your student debt?" The entire backyard went quiet. Every single person turned to look at me. I felt my face get hot. I had no idea what he was talking about. I laughed nervously and said, "Dad, I think you're confused. I'm still drowning in $180,000 of loans. They're destroying my credit." That's when I noticed my brother. Grant had gone completely white, like ghost white. His wife, Kelly, was staring at him with this look of pure panic. My dad's smile vanished. "What do you mean? Grant called me 4 years ago. He said you were too embarrassed to ask yourself, but you desperately needed help with your loans. I wired the money that same day." My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone right there in front of everyone and opened my banking app. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type my password. I scrolled back through 4 years of statements. Nothing. Not a single deposit from my dad ever. "Show them your account, Grant," my Uncle Ron said loudly. He's a retired cop and he'd already figured it out. Grant tried to leave, just straight up tried to walk out of the party, but my uncle blocked the door while my dad pulled out his phone and showed everyone the bank transfer. $200,000 wired to an account under my name, account number, routing number, everything. That's when Kelly started crying. Not quiet tears, full sobbing. "I told you this would catch up to us," she kept saying. "I told you, Grant, I told you." Grant finally admitted it in front of everyone. He'd set up a fake bank account in my name at a completely different bank. When my dad asked for my account details, Grant gave him the fake one. The money went straight to Grant and Kelly. "That's our house," Kelly sobbed. "The down payment, the renovations, the kids' private school, all of it. He told me you'd gotten money from Grandma's estate instead. I swear I didn't know." My dad called the police immediately. His hands were shaking as he dialed. Grant just stood there while Kelly kept apologizing to me, to my parents, to everyone. The cops arrived about 20 minutes later. By then, my dad had pulled up all the documentation, the transfer receipts, everything. My dad showed the officers everything on his phone. Then my mom spoke from the corner. "I've known for 18 months. Everyone turned. Dad's face went white. She stared at the ground. "Grant told me when he was drunk at Christmas." Her voice cracked. My dad stumbled backward into a chair. Grant lunged toward her, screaming, "You said you'd never tell!" Uncle Ron had to hold him back while Mom just stood there shaking. I walked straight up to my mother and I could feel everyone watching us. The music had stopped. Someone had turned off the speaker. You could hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses down. That's how quiet it got. "What do you mean 18 months? My voice came out louder than I intended. "You've known for 1.5 years?" She wouldn't look at me. Just kept staring at the patio stones like they were the most interesting thing in the world. Her hands were clasped in front of her and her knuckles were white. "Answer him," my dad said. His voice was flat, cold. I'd never heard him sound like that. Not when I wrecked his car at 17. Not when I dropped out of college the first time. Never. Mom took a breath and her hands were trembling. "Grant came to me at Christmas. Came to me at the Christmas before last. He was drunk and he started crying in the kitchen and he told me what he'd done. He begged me not to tell anyone. He said he'd pay it back, that he just needed time." "Time," I repeated. The word felt like sand in my mouth. "You gave him 18 months while I've been—" I stopped myself. Nobody knew about the car yet. Nobody knew I'd been washing my hair in a gym sink and eating the free samples at Costco for dinner. "While you've been what?" Dad asked. He was looking at me now, really looking, and I could see him starting to piece things together. The weight I'd lost, the dark circles, the fact that I'd been dodging family dinners for months. I looked at my mom, really looked at her. Her eyes were red, but she still wouldn't meet my gaze. "Did you know I was homeless?" The backyard went dead silent again. My Aunt Linda gasped. Someone dropped a glass and it shattered on the concrete. One of the little kids asked loudly, "What's homeless mean?" And their mom shushed them. Mom's face crumpled, but she still wouldn't look at me. She nodded once. tiny and quick, barely perceptible. "Say it out loud," I said. My hands were clenched into fists. "Say it so everyone can hear you." "Yes." It came out as a whisper. Dad stepped closer to her. His face had gone red. "You knew our son was living on the street?" "In his car," she corrected. Like that made it better. Like there was some meaningful difference. "I drove past the gym one day about 2 months ago. I saw his car in the back lot behind the dumpsters, and I saw his blankets in the back seat and his laundry bag, and I kept driving." My dad actually staggered. Uncle Ron caught his arm to steady him. My Aunt Linda had her hand over her mouth and tears were running down her face. "You kept driving," I said. I wasn't even angry yet. I was just trying to understand it, trying to make it make sense in my brain. "You saw me sleeping in my car, and you drove away. I didn't know what to say to you," Mom said. And now she was crying, tears running down her cheeks, her nose getting red. "I didn't know how to explain why I couldn't help when Grant had stolen my money," I finished for her. "The money that would have kept me off the street. The money that would have given me a normal life." My cousin Danny said, "Jesus Christ," from somewhere behind me. My aunt was full-on crying now. My dad turned to Grant. His whole body was shaking. "Give me your phone. I want to see your bank statements. Right now." Grant's face went from white to gray. His lips were trembling. "Dad, I don't think—" "I said give me your goddamn phone." I'd never heard my father swear before. Not once in 32 years. He didn't swear when he hit his thumb with a hammer. He didn't swear in traffic. He said darn and shoot like he was living in a 1950s sitcom. Uncle Ron still had his hand on Grant's shoulder. He squeezed hard. "Give him the phone, kid." Grant pulled it out with shaking hands and unlocked it. Dad grabbed it and opened the banking app. I watched his face as he scrolled through the account. The color drained out of it completely. He kept scrolling and scrolling like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then he turned the phone around so everyone could see. The account balance showed $340.12. "Where is it?" Dad's voice cracked. "Where's my $200,000? Grant started crying. Not the dignified tears Kelly had, but ugly, gasping sobs. The kind where snot runs out of your nose and you can't breathe. He covered his face with his hands and wouldn't answer. His shoulders shook. Kelly stood up. She'd stopped crying and now she just looked exhausted, defeated, like someone had pulled her soul out through her chest. She pulled out her own phone and started reading texts out loud. November 2021. Grant tells me we got $80,000 from James's portion of Grandma's estate for the house down payment. March 2022. Grant says his bonus covered the kitchen renovation. July 2022. Another bonus for the kids' school tuition. She looked up at Grant with pure disgust on her face. There was no Grandma's estate, was there? There was no estate at all. It was all stolen money. Everything. My dad sat down heavily in one of the folding chairs. It creaked under his weight. "Where's the rest, Grant? That's only $80,000. Where's the other 120? Grant finally dropped his hands. His face was blotchy and his nose was running and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Casinos," he said. $65,000 at casinos over 3 years. Kelly thought I was on work trips to Chicago and Atlanta. Kelly's mouth fell open. She looked like he'd just slapped her across the face. "Work trips," she repeated. "You told me you hated those trips. You complained about them constantly." "I know," Grant said. "You son of a bitch," she said quietly. "You lying son of a bitch." "And the rest?" Dad pressed. His hands were gripping the armrests of the chair so hard his knuckles had gone white. "That's still missing what, 55,000? Where is it? The house? The school? Our lifestyle," Grant said. His voice was flat now, emotionless, like he'd run out of the ability to feel anything. "New furniture, the Audi, Kelly's engagement ring upgrade, vacations, private swimming lessons for the kids, all of it. It's gone. All of it's gone." That's when my mom said something that made my blood run cold. "I gave you money to pay James back." Everyone turned to look at her again. She was standing by the fence, twisting her hands together. "What?" Dad said. He stood up from the chair. Mom was still crying, but now she looked angry too, defensive. "I've been sending Grant money for 18 months. Ever since he told me. He said he was going to use it to pay James back quietly, to fix this before anyone found out. He promised me." Grant wouldn't look at her. He was staring at the ground. "How much?" I asked. My voice sounded weird in my own ears, distant. Mom shook her head. "How much, Mom?" "I don't know exactly. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. Whenever he said he was close to having enough to make it right." Dad grabbed Mom's purse from the patio table and pulled out her iPad. She tried to stop him, but he pushed her hand away, hard. She stumbled back a step. He opened Venmo and scrolled through the transaction history. His hand started shaking again. $18,000, he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You sent him $18,000 in a year and a half." He looked up at Grant. "Did any of that go to James?" Grant shook his head. No words, just a shake. "Where did it go?" Dad asked, and his voice had gone quiet again. Dangerous quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before a thunderstorm. Grant wiped his nose on his sleeve. Most of it went to the casinos, too. I had a problem, okay? I couldn't stop. I thought if I could just win it back, just one big win, I could fix everything. I could pay everyone back and no one would have to know. You gambled away $18,000 of your mother's money, Dad said slowly, like he was explaining something to a child. While your brother slept in a car behind a gym, while he ate from food banks, while he showered in a public bathroom. I found myself laughing. I couldn't help it. The whole thing was so insane, so absurdly horrible that laughter was the only response my brain could come up with. Everyone stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Did you know about the gambling? Dad asked Mom, cutting through my laughter. She nodded, just once. Dad stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Get out of my house." "This is your sister's house," Mom said weakly. "Then get out of my sight. Get in your car and leave right now, before I say something I can't take back." Mom looked around at all the faces staring at her. My aunts, my uncles, the neighbors, all of them. Nobody moved to defend her. Nobody said a word. She picked up her purse with shaking hands and walked through the backyard gate. We heard her car start in the driveway and the engine fade as she drove away. The police officers had been standing off to the side through all of this, just observing, taking notes. One of them stepped forward now. He was young, maybe 30, with a notebook in his hand. "Sir, we're going to need to take statements from everyone. This is going to be a long night." He was right. We were there until almost midnight. The officers interviewed everyone who'd witnessed the confrontation. They took photos of Dad's phone showing the bank transfer. They had Grant write out a statement admitting to the fraud. Kelly gave her own statement, explaining how she'd been deceived about the money's origin. The party decorations were still up the whole time. Happy 68th birthday balloons bobbing in the breeze while police officers documented my family's destruction. After the police finally left and most of the family had gone home, I couldn't sleep. The adrenaline was still pumping through my system. I went back to my dad's house with him. Uncle Ron came too, and my Aunt Linda. We sat in Dad's living room and he just stared at the wall. "I need to find out where all of it went," he said finally. "Every single penny. I need to know." "I can help," I offered. "Me too," Uncle Ron said. We started with the computer. Dad's not great with technology, but I am. I went through his email archives while he pulled bank statements from his filing cabinet. Uncle Ron made coffee. Strong coffee. We were going to need it. Around 2 a.m., I found something in the deleted folder. An email from 4 years ago. The timestamp showed it was sent 2 days after Dad had wired the money. The subject line read, "I messed up." I opened it. It was from Grant to Mom. "Mom, I took Dad's money meant for James. I have a gambling problem. I've had it since college. What do I do? I'm scared. Please help me." Mom's reply was right below it, sent 6 minutes later. "Do not tell your father under any circumstances. We'll say James got Grandma's estate instead of loan help. That's why he didn't need the money. Delete this email immediately after reading." I sat there staring at the screen. My hands went numb. The coffee cup slipped out of my fingers and spilled all over the desk. I didn't even notice. "Dad," I said, "you need to see this." He came around the desk and read over my shoulder. I watched his reflection in the computer monitor. His jaw tightened and his eyes went red and watery. 18 months, he said. "She said she'd known for 18 months. That was a lie." His voice cracked. "She's been doing this from the beginning. From day one. From the moment he stole the money, she knew. She helped him do it. She helped him plan it." I scrolled down. There were more emails, all deleted, all recovered from the trash folder. Mom coaching Grant on what to say at family dinners. "If anyone asks about your house, say you and Kelly saved aggressively. Don't mention any monetary gifts." Mom telling him to avoid me at Thanksgiving. James might ask questions about his loans. Try not to sit near him. Mom sending him articles about how to hide bank accounts from family members. This wasn't just covering for Grant. This was an active conspiracy. Uncle Ron read over my shoulder and whistled low. "This is bad. This is really bad. She's an accomplice to fraud." Dad called Mom. It was almost 3 in the morning, but he didn't care. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been sitting by the phone waiting. "Get back here," Dad said. His voice was shaking. "Right now. We found the emails. All of them." She showed up 20 minutes later. Her eyes were puffy and red and she hadn't changed clothes. She was still wearing the same outfit from the party. Dad and I were waiting in the living room. Uncle Ron had left to give us privacy, but Linda stayed. She wanted to hear this. "Explain," Dad said, and showed her the laptop screen. Mom looked at the emails and her face crumpled. She started crying again, harder than before. "I couldn't let you hate him," she said between sobs. "He's our son. He made a mistake. People make mistakes." "A mistake," Dad repeated. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He stole $200,000 and you helped him cover it up for 4 years. You invented an entire story about Grandma's estate. You coached him at every single family event to keep the lie going. You saw James sleeping in his car and you did nothing. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. You chose." "I thought I could fix it," Mom said. "I thought if I gave him money, he could pay James back quietly and no one would ever know and everything would be fine. While James was homeless, I added. My voice came out cold. I didn't recognize it. You were fixing Grant's problem while I was sleeping in my car, while I was using a water bottle to brush my teeth, while I was stealing toilet paper from gas stations because I couldn't afford to buy it. Mom looked at me, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Resignation, maybe, or just exhaustion from holding up the lie for so long. The mask was gone. I thought you'd survive, she said quietly. You've always been the strong one. You've always figured things out. Grant needed help. He's always needed help, ever since he was little. The room went silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. Dad stood up slowly. Get out. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. First thing. Mom's face went white. All the blood drained out of it. You don't mean that. We've been married for 40 years. I've never meant anything more in my life. You chose our son's comfort over our other son's survival. You helped commit fraud against me. You forged documents in my name. Get out of my house and don't come back. She left. This time she was sobbing so hard she could barely walk. She hit her shoulder on the doorframe on the way out and didn't even seem to notice. Dad and I spent the rest of the night doing math. We tracked every dollar we could find. We made spreadsheets. We called banks. We pulled credit reports. By the time the sun came up, we had it. $80,000. House down payment, sitting in equity in a house Grant and Kelly owned, $65,000. Gambling losses at various casinos, gone forever $25,000. Private school tuition and lifestyle expenses, spent $12,000. Various payments Mom sent to Grant that he gambled away. That left $18,000 unaccounted for. Missing. Vanished. There's money missing, I said as the sun started coming through the windows. Where's the last $18,000? Dad was half asleep in his chair, his reading glasses crooked on his face. But he opened his eyes. We need to ask Grant. We called him at 6 a.m. Kelly answered his phone. Her voice was flat and exhausted. He's not here, she said. He left last night around midnight and didn't come back. Took his wallet and his keys and just left. I'm filing for divorce today. I already called a lawyer. Do you know where he is? Dad asked. No, and honestly, I don't care. He can sleep on the street for all I care. She hung up. We found Grant at a Denny's near his house 3 hours later. We drove to every 24-hour restaurant within 10 miles before we spotted his Audi in the parking lot. He was in a corner booth drinking coffee and staring at nothing. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were hollow. Dad and I slid into the booth across from him. The waitress came over, but Dad waved her away. Where's the last $18,000? Dad asked. No greeting, no small talk, no pretense. Grant set down his coffee cup. His hand was shaking and some sloshed onto the table. Loan sharks. What? I owed $18,000 to some guys for gambling debts. Heavy guys, the kind who break your legs if you don't pay. I used the stolen money to pay them off so they wouldn't hurt me. Or Kelly. Or the kids. Dad put his head in his hands. It's all gone, he said. $200,000 and it's all just gone. Evaporated. Like it never existed. The house, I said. The down payment was $80,000. That money still exists. It's sitting in equity. Dad looked up at me. There was something like hope in his eyes for the first time all night. You're right. We can get some of it back. He called Grant's phone later that day after we'd all gotten a few hours of sleep. Grant answered on the 5th ring. You're selling the house, Dad said. No negotiation. I want my money back, as much of it as possible. Grant actually tried to argue. His voice got high and panicky. Dad, you can't be serious. It's Kelly's house too. The kids need stability. They're in a good school district. We can't just sell. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. The house goes on the market this week or I press charges for fraud, identity theft, and whatever else my lawyer can think of. Your choice. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, okay, fine. I'll call a realtor. The house went up for sale the next week. Kelly was already moving out when the for sale sign went up in the front yard. She'd filed divorce papers the same day she said she would. She was taking the kids to her mother's place 2 hours away. I did something petty. I started going to the open houses. The realtor posted the showing schedule online and I showed up to every single one. I'd walk around with the other potential buyers, looking at the granite countertops and the hardwood floors, and I'd ask loud questions. Is this the house where the owner committed bank fraud? Didn't the previous owner steal money from his own father? I heard the owner has gambling debts. Think he's in trouble with dangerous people? The realtor would get this panicked look and try to usher me outside. The other buyers would glance at each other nervously and leave. Grant was there for one of the showings, and when he saw me, he looked like he wanted to die. His face went gray. You're enjoying this, he said when everyone else had left and the realtor was in her car making phone calls. You slept in a king-sized bed in a climate-controlled house with heated floors while I slept in a Honda Civic behind a gym, I said. You ate restaurant meals while I ate samples at Costco. You sent your kids to private school while I couldn't afford to fix my cavity and my tooth fell out. Yeah, I'm enjoying this a little bit. He didn't have anything to say to that. He just got in his car and left. The house sold 6 weeks later for $425,000. After Kelly's half of the equity, the realtor fees, and paying off the remaining mortgage, Dad got $75,000 back. Out of his original $200,000, that's all that was left, a little over a third. Grant moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town, the kind of place with bars on the windows and 3 different sirens every night. Kelly had full custody of the kids and wouldn't let him see them without a social worker present. He'd call Dad sometimes, late at night, drunk, crying, begging for help, begging for forgiveness. Dad blocked his number after the third call, but Mom kept trying to stop the house sale right up until closing day. She called Dad constantly. She showed up at his house. She sent emails and texts and even tried to get other family members to intervene. "You're destroying Grant's children's home," she said on one of the voicemails. "How can you do this to your own grandchildren?" Dad deleted it without listening to the whole thing. 3 days before closing, Mom called offering to take out a loan to pay Dad back if he'd just let Grant keep the house. "I'll get the money somehow," she said. "Just please don't do this." Dad refused. That's when I found the other document. I was helping Dad organize paperwork for the divorce when I found a home equity loan statement in a folder marked property taxes. $30,000, taken out 6 months ago against Dad and Mom's house. I showed it to Dad. "Did you take this out?" I asked. He looked at it and his face went pale, like someone had punched him. "I never signed this. I would never take out a home equity loan. We don't believe in borrowing against the house." We looked closer at the document. The signature was shaky, wrong. The letters didn't connect right. The slant was off. It was forged. "She took out a loan against our house," Dad said slowly, like he was trying to make his brain accept the information. "She forged my signature." We pulled the bank records. The $30,000 had been transferred directly to Grant's account on the same day the loan was approved. Mom had committed fraud against her own husband to keep funding Grant's gambling addiction. The divorce got ugly after that. Mom's lawyer tried to argue she deserved half of everything because she'd been a devoted wife for 40 years. Dad's lawyer brought up the forged loan, the conspiracy to hide the theft, the $18,000 she'd sent Grant, all of it. The judge was not sympathetic, not even a little bit. Mom tried to get me on her side during all this. She called me one afternoon while I was at work, crying, begging me to convince Dad to be reasonable. "This is destroying our family," she sobbed into the phone. "You need to tell him to stop. You need to make him understand." "You did this for family," I said. My voice was calm, eerily calm. "So tell me, which family were you doing it for? The son sleeping in his car, or the son gambling away stolen money? Which one were you trying to help?" There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end. "I had to choose," she said finally. "I thought you would survive and Grant wouldn't. I had to make a choice. You chose 30 years ago, didn't you?" I asked. "Grant's always been your favorite, since we were kids." She didn't deny it. She just cried harder and hung up. I started making phone calls to extended family after that. Mom had been telling everyone I was exaggerating, that Grant made a small mistake, and I was blowing it out of proportion because I was jealous of his success. She'd been playing victim, saying Dad was being cruel and vindictive. I sent them all the emails, the bank statements, the police report, everything. I made a Google Drive folder and shared it with 43 family members. That's when my Aunt Linda called me. She was my mom's younger sister, and she sounded furious, actually shaking with rage. "Your mother borrowed $10,000 from me 2 years ago," she said. "She told me it was for your medical emergency. She said you needed surgery for appendicitis and were too proud to ask the family for help. She said you'd be embarrassed if you knew she was asking." My stomach dropped. "I've never had appendicitis. I've never had surgery." "I know that now," Linda said. Her voice cracked. "She gave it to Grant, didn't she? She took my money and gave it to Grant." "Probably," I said. "That's what she did with everything." Linda started crying. "She used your name. She made me think my nephew was dying. I sent the money the same day. I was so worried about you." I sat there holding the phone, listening to my aunt cry, and I felt something break inside me. It wasn't just me Mom had hurt. It wasn't just Dad. She'd been using my name to steal from everyone. I called Mom after that. "How many people did you steal from using my name?" "I didn't steal," Mom said weakly. "I borrowed. I was going to pay everyone back when Grant got back on his feet." "Did you pay Linda back her $10,000? Silence. "Mom, did you pay her back?" "Not yet, but I'm going to. I just need time." "You stole $10,000 from your own sister and blamed it on me. You made her think I was sick and dying. You used my medical emergency as a lie to get money for Grant's gambling debts. What's wrong with you? What is actually wrong with you?" Mom broke down completely then. Full breakdown, hyperventilating sobs. "I've been covering for Grant since he was 16, she said through the crying. "He got in trouble at school for cheating and I paid the principal $5,000 to keep it quiet so it wouldn't go on his record. He wrecked his car drunk at 19 and I paid the other driver $3,000 to not call the police. He lost his first job for stealing from the register, and I convinced them not to press charges by paying back what he stole plus extra. I've been doing this for decades. If your father found out about the $200,000, he'd start digging, and he'd discover everything else. All of it. 30 years of covering and lying and stealing to protect Grant. I had to keep it hidden. You had to protect your lie," I said. "You chose your favorite son 30 years ago, and you've been sacrificing everyone else for him ever since. Me, Dad, your own sister, everyone." She didn't argue. She just hung up. The divorce finalized 3 months later. It was brutal. Mom got almost nothing because of the fraud, the forged loan, the financial deception. The house went to Dad. The retirement accounts got split, but Dad kept most of them because the judge ruled Mom had been stealing marital assets. Mom moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in a complex near the highway and got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She was 59 years old and starting over from scratch. Grant lost his job about a month after the house sold. Turns out gambling at work on company computers is a fireable offense. His boss had been tracking his internet usage and found thousands of visits to gambling websites during work hours. He couldn't find anything in finance after that. Every interview asked about the gap in his employment, and he didn't have a good answer. Last I heard, he was doing data entry for $12 an hour at some insurance company, entering numbers into spreadsheets 40 hours a week in a windowless office. Kelly got remarried within a year. Some guy she worked with named Paul, who actually had his life together. Steady job, no addictions, nice guy. The kids called him Dad now. They'd started doing it after about 6 months. Grant was allowed supervised visits every other Sunday at a McDonald's play place with a social worker watching, but the kids didn't want to see him. They knew what he'd done. Kids aren't stupid. They'd overheard the fights, seen their mom crying, watched their house get sold. I took the $75,000 Dad recovered and paid down my student loans. It didn't eliminate them, but it cut them in half. I went from $180,000 to $105,000. I could breathe again. I got an apartment, a real one with walls and a kitchen and a bathroom. I bought a bed, an actual bed with a frame and a mattress and sheets. I slept in it for 14 hours the first night and woke up crying because I couldn't remember the last time I'd been that comfortable. Dad tried to give me more money to help, but I told him the $75,000 was enough. He'd lost enough because of Grant. He needed to rebuild his retirement. He'd given Mom 40 years and $200,000 and gotten nothing but lies in return. Mom tried to reach out to me every few months. Emails that I deleted without reading, texts that I blocked, voicemails that I erased. She tried reaching out to Dad too, but he blocked her on everything. Phone, email, social media, everything. Grant sent me a letter once. It came to my apartment somehow, though I have no idea how he got my address. It was 6 pages long, handwritten on lined notebook paper, explaining how sorry he was and how he'd hit rock bottom and found God and joined Gamblers Anonymous and wanted to make amends. I read the first page and then burned the whole thing in my kitchen sink without finishing it. I watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. The extended family fell apart. Half of them sided with Mom, saying Dad was too harsh and everyone makes mistakes and family should forgive. The other half cut her off completely, especially after Linda told everyone about the fake medical emergency loan. Thanksgiving became a nightmare of who would be at which gathering. Christmas was worse. Eventually, people just stopped trying to bring everyone together. The family shattered into factions. Linda never spoke to Mom again. She told everyone at the next family reunion about the $10,000 and the appendicitis lie. That turned a few more people against Mom permanently. Linda's husband called Mom and threatened legal action if she ever contacted their family again. Uncle Ron retired from the police force and moved to Arizona with his wife. Before he left, he came to my apartment and gave me a 6-pack of good beer. We sat on my fire escape and drank it. "You did the right thing," he said, exposing all of it. "I know it feels like you destroyed the family, but you didn't. They destroyed themselves decades ago. You just turned on the lights so everyone could see the rot." I think about that night at the birthday party sometimes, how everything unraveled in the span of a few hours, how one question from my dad exposed a lie that had been eating away at our family for 4 years, or maybe for decades, how 50 people watched my family implode in real time. Grant destroyed his life for $200,000 that's all gone now, gambled away, spent on a lifestyle he couldn't afford, used to pay off dangerous people. Mom destroyed her marriage and her reputation trying to protect him. She lost her house, her husband, her sister, most of her family. Kelly lost her house and her marriage, but she got out and built something better. The kids lost their relationship with their father, probably permanently. And me? I'm the only one who walked away with anything. I blocked all their numbers 6 months after the divorce finalized. Mom, Grant, even some cousins who kept trying to play mediator, asking me to be the bigger person and help heal the family. I changed my email address and didn't give the new one to anyone who might pass it along. I don't go to family events anymore. When someone asks about my family, I say we're not in touch and change the subject. Dad and I get dinner once a month. We meet at this Italian place near his house, and we talk about normal things. His new hobbies, my job, the weather, sports, normal dad and son stuff. We don't talk about Grant or Mom. We have an unspoken agreement. He's dating someone now, a woman he met at the gym named Patricia. She's nice and she doesn't know anything about the family drama. He wants to keep it that way. I don't blame him. The $200,000 destroyed my family over the course of 4 years and took everything down with it. The money's gone forever, spent on a house Grant doesn't own anymore, gambling debts to loan sharks, private school tuition for kids who won't speak to him, and hush money from a mother who chose her favorite son over the truth. I was the one sleeping in my car with a blanket that smelled like mildew. I was the one whose name was used to steal from family members. I was the one whose identity was literally stolen to commit fraud. I was the one who lost a tooth because I couldn't afford the dentist, and I'm the only one who survived it. Dad signed the last of the divorce papers on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I met him at his lawyer's office downtown. When we walked out into the parking lot, he looked at me and said, "I spent 40 years married to someone who was lying to me the entire time. Not just about this, about everything. The gambling problem, the theft, the forgery, covering for Grant since he was a teenager. She knew about all of it and she helped hide all of it. I didn't know my own wife. I shared a bed with a stranger. We got lunch at a diner and didn't talk much. What was there to say?" Grant called Dad's lawyer once trying to get some of the house money back, claiming he was destitute and needed help. The lawyer laughed and hung up on him.